5.
Okay, I will start in a few seconds. Hello, everyone. First of all, let me welcome you on the 12th edition of the conference, The Future of Europe, organized by the Faculty of International Business and Economics. For those that are new to the conference, my name is Irina. I'm an associate professor at the Faculty of International Business and Economics. And together with Mr. Cornel BăRBUș, I'll be the moderator of this session that is focused on family economics. Before proceeding to the presentations, allow me some very brief considerations on the current situation of families today. As you all know, since Becker's seminal work on how individuals take decisions regarding marriage, children, and divorce, mainly driven by economic incentives, mainly looking for the maximization of their self-interest, many things have changed in the family landscape, in family economics, and in family studies in general. Some of these changes are different family forms and patterns, different parenthood experiences, and even different reasons for which marriages are formed. Prominent sociologists have illustrated that today family formation is driven mainly by romantic ideas and ideals, and not by economic incentives, the partners looking for pure relations and pure love. Other family transformations are related to different socioeconomic trends, such as the increased female labor force participation, migration, and aging. All these profound transformations of families and societies reinforce the need to use the economic perspective for understanding how families work and for understanding what results families produce, results in terms of health, politics, and economic results, such as consumption or economic growth. Moreover, as you know, the last 2 years marked by the COVID-19 pandemic were somehow a natural experiment that has tested the family's strength and that has tested also the governmental policies and social systems that influence families' well-being. In some happy cases, families have proven to be the bastions of mental health and mental equilibrium for their members, maintaining somehow their level of spending. In other cases, poverty, depression, and domestic violence have emerged within the families. In this context, I'm personally very happy that the International Business and Economics faculty is organizing its third round of discussions in the field of family economics, which is not very well developed in Romania. Before beginning, I would like to thank to Mr. Cornel BăRBUș for his help and his efforts to organize the conference. Also, as general rules for organization, I would suggest to carry on the presentations one by one according to the agenda and have questions after these presentations, after each presentation finishes, and also after all the presentations are realized, we can have another questions and answers sessions, if this is fine for you too. Also, Mrs. BOBARNAT, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Good evening. So I should start my presentation. In the agenda, I saw that I'm the last one presenting.
Yes, sure. We are just beginning. So if you agree and if this is fine for you, we will start in the order of the agenda.
Yes, okay.
Okay, I would like to give the floor to Mr. BăRBUș, please.
Thank you for organizing such a conference about the future of economy. So already we are at the 4th edition with this panel about the economy of the family, that we consider a part of the economy which is not so much considered by let's say, the economist, but this is very relevant for many issues in the life, especially after this pandemic or during this pandemic, when we see the family is a lot of, let's say, role playing in the society. So we are glad to have here all valuable speakers. So what I am expecting from this panel as the 4th edition is that we bring, let's say, good value about this branch of the economy, which is called the economy of the family. And we would like to see if we can do something in this direction, also from the research point of view, and to see what can be, let's say, taken in front of our eyes, in front of our society, speaking about the economy of the family. What is the contribution of the state, or how much the state will pay to that we have the statistics, but opposite, how much the family is contributing to the state, how much is value of the invisible work done in the house, or how much happiness is bringing the family in the society. There are some questions which can continue on these issues about the economy of the family. So I will be glad to hear more deep analysis from the speakers today. And what I would like to challenge you, all of your speakers, esteemed speakers we have, that we are like a small number of participants. This could be a better opportunity to speak between us. But of course, we'll have questions with the people looking at us, and also because this is recorded and will be a good, very good, let's say, material to reflect on it, and for the other people who will join this branch of the economy of the family to refer on it. So that's my challenge to you now, that after the presentation we'll have question and answer session for each of the speaker, but after all the presentation
It seems that the connection is a little bit interrupted on behalf of Mr. BUN.
Yeah, so sorry that I will close the phone because that's somebody is calling. So that's sorry for this. So that's what the challenge is, to speak and have discussion with Q&A for each speaker. And after this, after all the presentations, we'll have also free discussions. So I'm glad that also the last speaker, or Balázs Molnár, is with us. Hi, Balázs, welcome.
Welcome.
So we are complete now with the session. So Mrs. Yon, I leave you to give the floor according to the agenda to see how it is, and then let's go.
Yes, so let's start the round of presentations, and I will ask Mr. Molnár to start his presentation.
If Balázs, are you ready? It's okay for you to start the presentation. Great, thank you. That
You're muted.
Is coming. So Hungary is very famous about the family policies in Europe. So we can say at the European level, that's the country that has realized in the last 4 or 5 years the biggest advance in family policies in Europe. So let's hear what you can bring to us as an examples or practices. What you can tell us today, Balázs.
Mr. Molnár, we cannot hear you.
Still mute, please, microphone. We cannot hear you.
No,
not
don't
yet.
Hear you.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. But it's
Let's wait a little bit. Perhaps we can solve this. We don't hear you. You can write in the private chat if you want to transmit something now. Perhaps we can let you fix this. Yes, and go to the second presenter, perhaps.
But you can try, Balázs, to see what is with the microphone. Maybe you can
Yes?
get out
Okay.
and come in again, and then we will see. So we'll be the second speaker. Okay.
Okay, so Mr. RIZZOLI, Professor RIZZOLI from LUMSA University from Italy. Again, welcome to our conference and to our panel.
All right, thank you. Does my microphone works?
Works, Matteo. Very nice, very well. Italy is here with us. Roma is. We are listening to Roma now.
That's great. That's already a beginning. So let's see if also the second step works. So I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see what happens. All right.
So to say something about Matteo, Matteo is very involved in this, let's say, in economy of the family, but also in demographics. So he is associate professor at LUMSA University. Maybe also you can tell some more about you, Matteo, just a small presentation about you, and after this about the presentation, if you agree, please.
Thanks for the presentation. You confirm that you can see my slides?
Yes,
because
yes,
I see only my slides. I don't see what you see on the screen. Good. All right. So I'm professor, yes, of economics at LUMSA University. Since a few years, I've also got interested into family economics. So that's not my field of expertise as at the beginning, but I'm got very into that lately. And since a couple of years, I also have this position at the John Paul II Institute for Studies on Marriage and Family, where I actually teach family economics. So while everything started during the pandemic, so we had a very quick lockdowns. As you know, Italy was the first country to go into lockdown, but was quickly followed by mostly everybody else. And there were a lot of claims that this would have brought a lot of struggles to families. So there was huge debate, or at least newspapers and everybody claiming that this was going to be a very, very bad experience in terms of happiness, in terms of mental health, in terms of well-being for many, many families. And so there were talks of divorce rates spiking after the lockdown was over. There were talks about plummeting birth rates, and so on and so forth. So a very grim future ahead was forecasted at the very beginning. Well, did that happen? Well, yes and no. In fact, right after the lockdown was over, some studies and some people started to look at the data, and anecdotal as well as factual evidence started to rise that told us a very different story. So in fact, it didn't look that bad after all. Of course, there were families who lost their relatives for the COVID. Of course, there were families that saw violence. But if you look at the great and vast mass of families across countries, actually the picture didn't look that bad at all. So this has got us interested. Well, we suspected, so we had an idea that things might have not looked that blink, that bet already while we were in the lockdown, probably starting from our own experiences. But so we started to pay attention, and we also had run our own research while we were still in the lockdown. But before I move to my own research on this, I want to tell you a little bit more about what's the evidence that is coming from different sources, including the very well-known World Happiness Report. So the World Happiness Reports of this year is basically focused on what happened last year, and of course, the implications for well-being of the COVID epidemics have been explored in many ways. So here you see, unfortunately, I cannot point. Let's see. Do you see my mouse moving? So
we can see your mouse, but the figures are quite small.
Okay, so all right. So I'll try. Let's see. Maybe I can enlarge. Do you see more larger now?
Yes. Yes.
Good. All right. Okay.
It's
so what is
better.
this? This is the ranking of countries in the World Happiness Report. And here you see on the first column the rank of this year, 2020, so last year, as compared on the third column to the rank in the previous years. And in the second and the fourth column, you see the absolute level. So when you measure happiness in the studies between 0 and 10, so the average Finland inhabitant answers 7.88. And as you can see, there are some countries that, on general, increase their happiness. This is certainly the case in Finland. It is the case in Iceland. It is not the case in Denmark. And so you see, I mean, there are actually several countries that have actually shown, in general, an improvement in happiness. Just to see, so for instance, United States has increased a little bit. Germany has also increased a little bit. Some other countries have also decreased. I'm not claiming that every country has increased the level of happiness, but it certainly was a surprise to see so many actually countries improving their absolute level of happiness. Even Italy moved from quite relatively strong movement from 6.38 to 6.48.
25 compared with 28. Yeah, so this is it's a big advance.
If you wonder where is Romania in this ranking, for some reason, don't ask me why. Probably the data didn't come in, but it's not in these tables for Romania. But there are the data about the levels. So the average of the 2018-2020. So this includes also the last year. And you see 6.14, and which is an improvement from few years before. So from the 3 years before. So I'm not sure what happened exactly in the last year, but also you see Romania certainly did not get worse. At least doesn't look like. All right. So does these surprising results have something to do with families? Well, it appears it does. Okay, so here again we are looking at the data from the World Happiness Report. This data basically put together all countries. Now we are looking at all countries together, and we are simply looking at what drives changes in the happiness level, whether it is income, whether it is health, whether it is the possibility of counting on friends, and so on. Those are the typical categories which are analyzed year after year in the happiness report. And as you can see, so of course income so how do we have to interpret this changing coefficient? Well, in this way, the role that income plays in explaining the overall level of happiness has actually decreased in the last year. So income is less important in explaining why people are happy or are not happy. Whereas being older than 60 has actually a big role. Why is this? Well, I mean, it has something it is related to the fact that apparently during the pandemics, while there was this virus circulating, especially among the old people, many other aspects of the health of elderly people has actually improved. Don't ask me why. So that's not what we are interested here. What we are interested is this down here. So married people, as compared to everybody else, so widowed, divorced, and people living alone, has actually improved significantly their happiness. Okay, so being married has actually become more significant in terms of explaining the happiness level overall. So here we have, I mean, a very reliable and well-known source for showing that actually families have something to do with that. All right, so let me quickly jump, if I manage to switch to our own study. While during the pandemic, we have run a sample survey collected while there was lockdown in the US, and this sample survey was conducted in the US. And we asked the people whether they were their level of happiness and whether they remember, so whether they could score their present level of happiness as compared to their level of happiness just before the pandemic. And as you can see, I mean, for married people up here, the happiness level has improved. Whereas for single has stayed relatively low and relatively similar, same for divorced. And so for widow, there was a strange effect, which I don't really know how to explain. This is the next graph is just another way of looking at the same results. So basically here we are just collecting the results for married, and we are putting everybody else, so widow, divorced, and single people in the other category. So during for married people, actually the pandemic in general, on average, has increased the level of well-being, the level of happiness, as compared to everybody else, where the movement basically cancel out, and it doesn't see. So in general, married people are happier, but we already knew that. Okay, the strange thing, the new thing is that actually the COVID has further improved that that difference. All right, so and this is, it seems it is related very much to the fact that the lockdown has increased the time that married people spend together, which is not necessarily the case. If you are married and if you stay far away, or maybe some of the two have to do a very intense work because of the pandemic. So, but in general, for many couples, this has certainly been the case. And when this has happened, so married people during the lockdown spend even more time together, this has provoked a large jump in their level of happiness. So why do I say, and also the presenter at the beginning talked about the lockdown as a natural experiment? Well, because the idea came to us also to run this study by this previous study that was how many minutes do I have?
Feel free, don't worry.
Exactly.
All right, okay. All right, thank you. So the idea came to us to run this survey from this paper. This paper was presented at the beginning of April and was based on data that was previously collected in 2012 and 2013. This American Time Use Survey basically asked interesting questions about the level of happiness of Americans, and also of about how they spend their time, very finely grained data about how they spend their time, and also with whom they spend their time. And so basically, by using this data, let's see here, by using this data, this author has managed to reconstruct that. So basically, he divided the people into married and single people. Okay, so he basically selected these two categories. He took out married with no children as to keep things comparable, and basically he estimated what was the impact of spending additional 100 minutes with some categories of others on the level of happiness. Okay, so for a married, so the data tell us that for a married person, staying alone actually decreases the level of happiness by a small but not significant amount. Whereas spending time with friends and also especially with the spouse produces a statistically significant improvement in the happiness of the spouse, of the spouses. Okay, all the other effects, whether they are positive or negative, are not statistically significant. So I'm reading the first column here. Okay, I'm reading the first column, but you see the effect is that if you are married, spending more time with your spouse increases your happiness, and also with friends. For the single, staying alone decreases happiness. And also spending time with friends increases, but also this effect is not statistically significant. So basically, he simulated what happened during the lockdown, because the lockdown was a perfect natural experiment, in so much as basically the lockdown has created an exogenous shock in the time you spend with others. So people married, in general, had to, without deciding it, had the chance to spend more time with the spouses, whereas people staying alone basically could not even meet the friends. And this has created this huge experiment that, this is my claim, shows up in the data that I presented, both with my study and also with the study of the World Happiness Report, and also with other evidence that I did not provide here. So, in fact, spending this time together has increased. So, what is behind that? Well, and this is my last slide. I think what is neglected. So Cornel first said before that it is important that we understand what families produce and how families produce and contribute to the economy and to the well-being. So the first thing that of course, families also produce services and also produce goods that can be measured on market transactions and so on and so forth. But what really have evidence of, and that I hope I convince you of with the evidence that I presented you, is that families are a source, are the primary source of production of relational goods. And what are these relational goods? Well, these relational goods are a category of goods that have been developed in the last 20, 30 years, but by scholars such as Martha Nussbaum, but also in Italy we have several very important contributors on this, sociologists and also economists that have developed this idea that there are relational goods, and these relational goods are very important and very relevant for understanding the well-being of people. So relational goods are non-material goods that can only be produced and consumed together. Okay, so it's and you immediately understand that a dinner with a friend is not the same as the very same food consumed alone. Okay, so that together makes the dinner with a friend a relational good. And of course, families are the primary source of these relational goods that are so much important in explaining the well-being of people. So lesson learned, the lockdown experiment told us and teach us once again, if there was further need for providing evidence of this, that you see you see relational goods being produced to a very large extent within families. And with this, I conclude my presentation. So I also try to switch off my sharing.
Professor
Thank you,
RIZZOLI.
bravo,
Thank
Matteo.
you.
So that's you introduce a new subject, I can say, a new term, which means relational goods, which is not only produced by the family, but which is also like a quality indicator for relationships. So, which means that from you, I have one question: is this indicator is also looking for the time spent into a relation? But sometimes this is like a curve, is not as you are longer time spending with your wife and husband. Sometimes the quality is decreasing. So this is something like need to be more careful studied, because for example in the marriage they're usually saying the peak time is an average of 2 years. So this was before, so now it's less and less. But as long you stay in a relation, this not means a good relationship. So these could be other things. But what is your opinion about the time spent, relation between the time spent and the relational goods?
I haven't studied this aspect very carefully, but I would say that this the quality versus quantity trade-off is a little bit of overemphasized, I think, and it's just an excuse a lot of people use for avoiding to spend too much time with people they love. I think they ask a kid if there is a trade-off. He will tell you no. I mean, the more the better, and probably I think it's more or less the same with spouses, and so the lockdown has created many hours, the chance for spouses to stay together for many hours. So your hypothesis maybe can be tested. I don't know. Maybe there is a trade-off. I don't know. It's an interesting empirical question, which I just personally. So this is my just a personal opinion. No, nothing that I can prove, is just a little bit too much overemphasized.
Thank you, Professor RIZZOLI. I think that economists can test all type of issues and relations. I also have some questions for your presentation, but before I would like to ask the other participants whether they have questions or they may want to make comments on your presentation.
Balázs, so that your microphone is still not working. Please, if you can.
Well, communication will be a little bit difficult.
I think it's coming now. Was a sign that microphone is working, but
no.
Not yet. Not yet.
Perhaps from your mobile phone?
Maybe without headset.
Perhaps you can try from your mobile phone. Mm-hmm. Me neither.
maybe can you? There's like in StreamYard there is that icon cam meeting
Now, okay.
where you can. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Matteo.
Great.
Grazie mille. And I always end up in this situation that I don't know my computer well enough. At least he knows me better. I just have one very, very short comment, and I heard it with great pleasure what you came to in Italy, and I see in according to happiness grades of Americans throughout the coronavirus. We had two studies in Hungary. One in February 2020, when we had very low numbers of infections, but very strong curfew measures. And another one a year later, when we had lesser curfew, but much more illnesses and new infections. And that time also quite a lot of death and fatal cases as well. And actually, it was the results were very promising, because it was very much contradicting to what we have heard, that we will have a lot of divorces, we will have domestic violence, and everyone will divorce, and no one will have any new babies. But to the contrary, we had only 5% and 4% of those who said that their family relations were more problematic than prior the pandemic. 74% said in the first and the third wave that it did not change, and in both instances we had more than 20-25% of those who said that actually their family relations improved throughout the COVID. And exactly what you were also mentioning, that within the family ties were very much important. Those who were married, those who could depend on their children rather, because we asked the elderly not to really move out, go out to the streets as they were in a bigger risk of getting infected. It exactly showed that within intact families we had a better relations. I myself, I am quite convinced that the fathers were around more, and they were not running from one job to another. Then they stick home, and the family had to do something together, and it did not appear to be a problem, but rather they found joy in that, and it also displays in the relation. So I'm very happy that from an Italian American and the Hungarian survey, it's not exactly the same, but actually the conclusion can be the same. And we already can say that last year we had a bit higher fertility than the year before. So even in fertility, number of marriages, number of divorces, we did better than the last year before the pandemic. So in that sense, we can state that actually pandemic did not necessarily affected families to divorce, but rather to it proved that family actually is quite resilient, and the families do provide a big support in hard times, in hardships like this corona pandemic. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation, by the way. Thank you.
I also have one question, if we have enough time. So were included in the study only married couples without children, or also those with children? Because I suspect that it will be a great difference between couples having children and those that do not have children, mainly because of the division of unpaid work, child care, primarily. So that was my question. Thank you.
So, yes, thank you for your question. So in our study, they were included. So that they were included, and yeah. So we didn't explore yet that much that aspect to disentangle much, but usually exactly because the job of taking care of the kids is very often, too much often probably, evenly divided. The fact that fathers had to stay home in many, perhaps not all, but in many families, this has maybe rebalanced a little bit the work. I don't know. This is just a tentative explanation that I'm making, but anyways, just to answer to your question, yes, they were included in our own study and also in the happiness report.
Thank you very much for the answer and the presentation. As far as I've seen some researches, the father involvement in childcare increased during the pandemic, but the mother involvement increased even more. So, but thank you. Such an interesting presentation.
Okay, we had an organizational issue, things to solve. But I also have I've written down. I have some questions for Professor Rizzoli. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask you whether you have also variables that, or if you have samples or subsamples that have married people with children. So if you have any difference between families with children and without children.
So we have the data, but I'm not able to answer you at the moment because honestly, I've looked at this data like 1 year ago, and then I just did it again for preparing for this presentation, but I don't remember this level of details. So if you're interested, you mail me. I will look specifically around at my regressions to find it out. The specific differences I can look at, but I'm not able to answer.
Okay, I understand. I was just thinking that perhaps families with children experimented more difficulties. And I was wondering whether there are differences between families with children and families without children, because families with children had to work with their children around and had many complications in their homes.
It can be. I mean, okay, it can be. I mean, let's the data talk. But yeah, if we buy my, which is not mine, but if you buy the idea that actually the family produces relational goods, then I see no direct or no straightforward direction of the effect. So it could be that actually spending time with your children improves your own. Certainly, it improves a lot the happiness of your children. And this might be reflected in your own happiness as well. I don't know, but
yeah,
look at the
but
data.
Also doing homework and working with the children in the house, with the small children, was not very easy for many of the families. But anyway, thank you for the answer. Also, I was wondering whether the fact that you said that spending time with the husband or with the wife has contributed to more happiness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, this is one of the conclusions. I was wondering whether this can be an effect of the fact that those families, those partners, couldn't go out and see their friends. So perhaps there was a substitution effect. Perhaps.
I mean, if it was just a substitution, then you would see a zero effect, right? If you cannot go out and see your friends, but you see your spouse, and it is exactly the same thing. If you're substituting one for the other, then that you should not observe any effect. But here we see a positive effect. So I would conclude that no, they are not substitute. Spending time with your spouse is better than spending time.
But did you have also variables that measured this possibility to go out with the friends? I don't remember all the list of factors.
We control for that. Okay, so we have a control for but during the lockdown, if it was a real lockdown, then there was no chance to see friends, or at least
yeah, more or less.
So I see also there's also a question, but shall we? I mean, because maybe I'm taking too much time. If there are 5 of us who need to speak, 4 of us, maybe
let's have this question
some of these questions
and
later.
Then proceed to the next presentation. So Roxana VOICU-DOROBANTU is asking, what about domestic violence statistics?
Yeah. No, okay, that's true. So there were claims that there would have been improvement in domestic violence. I honestly, I didn't look at the data if it was really the case. So Monar told us that this was not the case in Hungary, right? But I cannot say for Italy. I cannot say because I don't know the data. But let's suppose it was, okay? Let's suppose it was, which probably it is. I don't know. I'm not. So when I report the statistic that I did report, I'm reporting averages. So of course, those averages tell us that there might be a very large amount of families. Let's call them physiological families, which live well together as families should do, which have actually taken joy of spending more time together. And there is a fringe, small or large, of families which are, of course, pathological families that are not well together. And probably for those families, the lockdown was certainly made things worse. But when you look at the averages, the effect of on the large part of the families prevail on the effect of on those others families. Okay, so nobody is claiming that we should go into lockdown to feel happier. Of course, it's just it was just an experiment to prove that something that was overlooked actually was there under the eyes of everybody. So. When you spend time with your family, people get happier. And probably we are not spending enough time with our spouses. Okay, so if you want to drive a conclusion, is that we are actually spending less time than what we really would like with our families.
Okay, thank you very much again, Professor RIZZOLI. I think that the presentation and the idea are very interesting, and I wish you good luck with the publication of these results. So if you all agree, let's go to the presentation of Mr. Balázs Molnár.
Thank you very much indeed. I hope it will work this time.
Yes, the microphone is working. It's okay now.
At least I'm trying to share with you my my presentation. Just a second. It's not really working yet, but hopefully.
So till you'll make the technical point of view, I will present Balázs Molnár is working, he's the Vice President of Kings in Hungary, so he's working with family policies, but not only. I will leave him a small time to present himself and what his role is in Kings and in all his job with the families in Hungary.
Indeed, thank you very much, Cornel. Yes, I am Balázs Molnár. I'm the Vice President of the Kopp-Mária Institute, which is a family research center of the Hungarian government, and we are dealing with quite some issues, mostly trying to underpin with research and analysis, and of course international activities, the Hungarian family policies, which now is turning already into the 11th year. Since 2010 we had a change of governance, and then since then we had a family-centered governance. And I would like to speak about the economy of the family which we believe is indeed important. I hope you can hear me right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me start by summarizing some of the specificities of the Hungarian family policies, and you will see that there are quite some economy-related factors in that. First of all is that we do not believe that family policy should be a universal care policy. We can also state that we do not want family policy to be just solely an anti-poverty reduction or anti-poverty measures. We rather would like to link benefits to employment, to legitimate employment. In 2010, we had 12% of unemployment. We had a huge portions of the Hungarian population in a very inactive state. And the government that time and since then tries to address that issue. We are happy to report that we now have the 5th lowest unemployment in the European Union with 4.2%. And of course, that is exactly why we do not imply income levels, mostly. There are some measures where we do, but we would rather like to have Hungarians to have as many children as they would like to have, irrespective of the income class, income level where they do live in. And what we can state is that if we ask Hungarians, and our institute did that last year, Hungarians would like to have 2.37 children in average. And now we have, after 24% of fertility increase, only 1.55. So there is still a big gap between the desired children and the children actually born to Hungarian families. So that's exactly why we do not apply income levels, because the biggest difference is indeed in the middle class. And of course,
sorry for the interruption. We cannot see the presentation.
You cannot see the presentation. I can see the presentation, which is very strange. Okay, because I was trying to. I try again. Sharing screen, and it asks me very strange questions I've never faced in Zoom and other things before. Sorry for that.
You have some suggestions on behalf of Roxana.
Now, all right. Now you can see it.
Now, yes.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What the difference?
Perfect.
I have no clue what I did differently, but it must have been me. I'm just a lawyer. I'm sorry for that. So, can you see it now?
It's okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, we come from, or around here in Central Europe, we come from a situation where we unfortunately do not have reserves, financial reserves accumulated throughout decades of hard work of families. And that's exactly why we believe that the financial situation of families have to be improved. And we again have something which is quite specific to Eastern Europe or Central Europe, is that Hungarians, I'm not sure whether Romanians do feel the same, but I'm quite sure that we would like to own our own home. It is also due to our historic differences, because most countries in the socialist communist times, people were not allowed to own houses, but we had to rent from the councils. So we have a huge program on boosting home ownership. We have a large families car purchase support for large families. If you have more than 3 children, you can have a bit more than 7,000 euro if you buy a new 7-seater. We have reduction of mortgages after the birth of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th child. This targets those who already have their houses, their homes, and they are paying off their mortgages with hard work. And there they can reduce their already existing mortgages, which is a big help. And we have some specific programs targeting, for example, the situation that many Hungarians do not work part-time, but the employment is rather on a way that they are either employed or not. It is also due to the fact that if you work part-time on an average Hungarian wage, going to work, it just does not pay as long as the child is very small. But with this measure called Yet Extra, it is possible to keep a benefit for 1.5 years if you go back to work, and that's 660 euros of family benefit you can keep, and without any limitation you can indeed work. And then, of course, we have a problem of postponement of birth, like everywhere in Europe. In Hungary, we managed to stabilize it at the average of 29 years, and it did not grow since 2018. But still, if we see the gap between desired children and born children, one of the reason of that gap is indeed that families do not start early enough to have the children, and that at one point there will be health and biology kicking in as well. So there is a possibility for those who either want children throughout their university studies or right after them, they can have that 660 euro of benefit even without prior social security contribution, and their university studies or tertiary studies are taken into account in that sense, so that they actually do not miss out on any of that opportunities.
We see only the first slide, so maybe you are speaking about the other slide also?
Yeah, it's not moving.
It's not moving?
No.
Because we see only the first slide.
Okay, maybe it's better now. Does it move now?
Yes.
Okay, I was speaking about this slide.
Okay.
You see it now, so I don't put it out to big one because it looks like that it does not work on big. It's okay now? Good. Yes. I come to the end of this one, and then we have a program in Hungary which targets those who are very well educated women, trying to help them to have their desired number of children. It means that if you are having a second child, a third child, and you still are paying off your university student credits, student loans, then the country will, or the state will take over 1/2 of the remaining repayment if you have a second child. And if you have the third child, the entire outstanding amount will be taken over by the state. This is again something to help well-educated women who actually face the biggest risk, so to say, that they will lose out on their career after studying so much. And of course, this is understandable that well-educated women, and we all know that in Europe, everywhere, and in the developed world, we have a far larger amount of female at universities than men. And then we have one measure which is something which is extremely popular in Hungary. This is the so-called baby expecting subsidy, which is a free-to-use loan or a subsidy. Married couples may apply for that. They have to be under the age of 40, and they can ask for a 30,000 euro loan, and this is an interest-free loan if you do not have any children. But in case that family in the next 10 years will have 3 children, they will not have to pay back any of that 30,000 euro, and that money can easily be used for starting a business, for an own share of buying an apartment, or actually for anything. We are not having any criteria listed there. And then again, we have talked about interfamiliar relations, and intergenerational solidarity is something where we believe it is very important to deal with. We do have some programs targeting the grandparents. One is that they actually can apply for that 660 euro benefit instead of their children, and they can stay home with their grandchildren, so that actually the sandwich generation, so the parents can go back to work. This is something which is quite popular in Hungary, but for that the grandparents cannot yet be in pension, so they still have to be in their active ages. And then we have one early retirement possibility, and that is indeed the only one in Hungary, which is the Women 40 program. That means that any women who worked 40 years in their life, so they don't have to be 40 years, but they have to work for 40 years, they can go to retirement regardless of reaching the 65 years retirement age or not. And this means that actually with Women 40, you can go to retirement if you are a female, if you are a woman, with roughly 5 years, 6 years earlier than if you would not have had this opportunity. So this is extremely popular. We have 300,000 Hungarians who already made use of that. And one of the newest programs is the so-called ethic conversion program. Until now, if a family would have wanted to join or live together with the grandparents, they would have received a smaller amount of subsidy as sort of an enlargement subsidy and not creating a new home. But as of this year, if you convert an attic that becomes a separate apartment, you actually can receive just as much subsidy as you would have built a new house, which is according to our research, about 8% of Hungarians can imagine living together in this two-generational houses. So it looks like that this has a value for Hungarians. And then on this one, I would like to show you that since 2010 we spend much more money on families. We roughly spend 5% of our GDP on families, which is about twice the OECD average. And you can see that's the orange line, the expenditure. And if you look at the blue one, that's fertility. And that very clearly shows that whenever we increased the GDP related expenditures on families, we either had growth of fertility from a historic low 1.23, that's the lowest ever in the case of Hungary. We are up to 1.56, and the least what we reached is that we had stability. And whenever we introduce new measures, we always experienced some growth of GDP, of fertility as well, which is important for us. You know, we are a shrinking population nation. Since 1981, Hungary has lost more than 1 million of its population. I believe it is unfortunately quite characteristic for many European countries. So there
this is very interesting figure, because I'm wondering if there is any other country in Europe which has an increasing curve like this in fertility rate, because I know all of them are decreasing curve, not increasing.
Well, there are some countries who manage to increase fertility. Yes, the Czech Republic, for example, the Polish as well. The Germans, of course, I'm not necessarily sure about I mean, we are sure about the fertility increase, but it's not necessarily
also Romania
in correlations. Yes, also Romania is now the third.
Is decreasing Romania?
No, it's decreasing. No. It's decreasing in population, but not in fertility.
Exactly.
Hungary also decreases in population, unfortunately, and one of the reasons for that is that despite the fact that we have a larger fertility, we have in the last 10 years we have more than 250,000 less women in childbearing ages than we used to have in 2010. So we have more children born in 2020 than in 2010, despite the fact that we have much less in the childbearing ages. But that's making our job very, very hard. That we actually, what we would like to achieve is that to have more children from much less mothers. And that's exactly the challenge. And I believe that many European countries do face that challenge. So this roughly shows that it is worth to put the resources in as fertility will follow. And of course, well, the issue is that it takes relatively long time. So it is steadiness is something where families need to be certain that these measures will last. So whenever we introduce new measures, and you can see that we always spend more money on it, we never change the base, but we always add something to it, so that actually parents do not feel that it is hectic, and they cannot be sure that given measure will last for the next, well, 10, 15, 20 years, corresponding to the time needed for raising a child. And then I would like to talk about the family taxation, which is the flagship of Hungarian family policy indeed. There you can see we started it in 2010. Well, the law was adopted in 2010, and then from 2011 on we had a new system. Until 2010, in Hungary, only the large families received tax cuts. So 3+ families, and that time we only had 106,000 Hungarians benefiting from tax cuts. Today we have more than 1 million Hungarians who can reduce their taxes on a monthly basis. As of 2011, we have 30 euros monthly after one child. This is cut from your personal income tax. We have 120 euros for 2 children, and then we have 300 euro for 3 children a monthly. So practically, if you have 3 children and you are on average wage in Hungary, you do not pay any personal income tax. And then we have 2 measures which are quite important and quite nice. One is not executed by any other country, according to my knowledge at least. As of 2022, mothers with 4 children are exempted to paying any of the personal income tax throughout their career. So this is a great help for those who spend quite some time home with their children. Usually their wages are lower because of that, and then of course that do adds up throughout their career, and this is something where we can help them. Personal income tax is 15% for everyone in Hungary, so a mother with 4 will make 15% more right away throughout her career. And then as of 20,
something Balázs, like for Matteo, if you are moving now to Hungary, you will not pay any tax now, isn't it?
But if you are on average wage, you are not paying, and it's only for mothers, the 4.
Ah, okay.
So as fathers, we are excluded. Yes.
So just
but for your wife, it is good.
No, I'm just screenshotting and sending it to my friends in the family, let's say family lobbying group, because Hungary, which I believe has a lower GDP per capita than Italy, actually pays much larger benefits for children than we do here in Italy. So congratulations for that. I'm really happy.
Thank you for that. Yes, we have a low, not very low, and it's growing number, our GDP per capita, and it's being improved and what is very, very promising is that we have a huge increase in real wages as well in the last 10 years. But still, of course, well, our capita can't be matched with the GDP per capita can't yet be matched with the Italian one, unfortunately. But we are working on that. But we are happy to keep the gap between our GDP per capita if you increase yours and we increase ours as well. So we should not have a debate about that. It's great if GDP per capita grows everywhere.
Yeah, this is very nice contribution. But what you said that, Balázs, for example, 2 days ago, I heard the news that in Romania, the GDP per capita is increasing very much. So last month, the GDP per capita in Romania made over Slovakia. And this month, Romania has better or higher GDP per capita than Hungary. So,
right.
but the problem is that for me, it's nonsense. You increase the GDP per capita, but you don't spend for the family. So that's something like it's not good relation between the GDP and family investment.
Well, that's if we talk about family economics, then it is a very, very interesting idea on if you have additional resources, and I will tell you another measure in a minute, how actually you can invest that on a way that it targets families, it helps families, and by that it helps the economy as well. Because what we certainly can be sure about is that whenever we are spending this money, we invest in our own economy. And I will get to that in a second, but maybe if I may talk about the youngsters as well, because that's also very important. Also in the question of family formation and of course starting your own career, breaking with Mama Hotel and Daddy Bank, is that as of 2022 we will follow the Polish and the Croatians who already have such a measure, and we will exempt Hungarians from paying personal income taxes if they are under 25 years of age. We have roughly 300,000 Hungarians benefiting from this measure as well. So again, we all know that we have larger youth unemployment. We have those who tend to stay in university for twice as long as the university studies actually last, and that shall give them a bit of an impetus to start their career earlier, start family earlier, and maybe with this measure we can help them in that one. But on the family tax benefits, we have roughly 700 million euros which stayed at the disposal of families in the last 10 years. This is a huge amount of money in Hungarian terms. And this means that it did fuel the internal consumption, because this money has been spent in Hungary. It has not been shipped out by multinational companies. It has not been spent in the Cayman Islands, but it has been spent within the Hungarian economy, meaning that actually the VAT did return to the flow of the economy. And of course, it did contribute very much to local SMEs, to local small companies, to local business actors to benefit from a wealthier families. And this money did indeed contribute to the very sound Hungarian economic growth. In 2019, so the last, so to say, peace year prior to the pandemic, Hungary had the largest GDP growth of 5% in the European Union. And then this one is just a very short slide for you. It shows the composition of family benefits in 2010 and in 2020. In 2010, we had roughly the same amount of so-called universal care measures, but we had much more employment-related benefits and we had much more tax incentives. So both the light blue and the dark blue is related to employment. You cannot make use of that if you are not employed. You cannot make use of that if you are not socially secured or your social security status is not provided. So actually by that we are trying to send a message with family policy measures as well, that the best social protection is indeed employment. We managed to have 900,000, nearly 1 million more in employment in Hungary in 2020 than in 2010. Whomever wants to work can work, and if you are working, then you can make use of much more family benefits than in 2010. Of course, our opposition or the government's opposition is very unhappy about this figure, and they keep on telling us that we should increase the universal care. But we believe that, as I have said, that it's not the aim of family policy to reduce poverty. There are many other programs for that, and as I have said, reducing poverty you can do much better if you employ people than if you pay them lifelong social security and not social security but social aid. So benefit dependency had been a big issue in Hungary, and this had been downscaled largely in the last 10 years. On this one, I just want to show you that another critic is always that Hungary would like to attach women to the stove, and that we would want women to stay home and just give birth to babies one after another. We would like to have Hungarians, as I have said, to have as many children as they desire to have. And we know that they want more children than they receive. But on the other end, we can see that we have a large increase in the employment of women or female employment. Only Malta did better in the last 10 years. And which is the green line, which makes us even very happy, is that we managed to upscale the employment figures of those who raise 3 or more children by more than 15%. So this is something where we are very proud of. And then I was talking about fighting poverty and child welfare measures. Yes, the primary aim is not that, but of course family policy has indirect effects and direct effects which do help to reduce child poverty. We have a very large program for free or subsidized child catering. We very much attach importance to not to stigmatize children. So it is directed on a way that actually not one, 2, or 3 child is receiving free meals in schools, but rather half of the class. So these measures do not at all stigmatize. We have a free supply of textbooks for all students now as of 2017, 2018, which was a big problem for many families because textbooks are indeed quite expensive. We have holiday opportunities. Central European, Eastern European friends know the so-called pioneer camps we used to have in the old socialist days, and we have one of that in the Lake Balaton, and that was completely renovated in the last couple of years, and families can, or children from disadvantaged families can spend a week there. And what is for €1 contribution for a week, so practically for free. But what is very nice in that from Monday to Friday the child is there together with other peers, and from Friday to Sunday the family members can join, and they can have a little bungalow for the family. So it is actually an entire week of holiday, but the weekend or the long weekend is provided for the entire family. Many Hungarian families only have such holiday opportunities, so it is very much valued. We have family support services for disadvantaged families. We have a holistic approach, which is the so-called Safe Start program. It helps tutoring the children from disadvantaged families so that they don't miss out on schools. And parents are educated on how to conduct the household better. Fathers are also educated on financially how they can actually deal with financial matters better. So it is a holistic approach. And then of course we have quite some reforms around the institutional system of child protection and the extension of the network of foster parents. This is important for us that whenever we can, for example, prohibit, or not prohibit, but somehow manage to have a child which is not taken up by their own parents, that it goes to foster parents and will be then ready for adoption later on. And then a couple of measures during the Corona pandemic, and this is my last theme. First of all, as many other countries, we had a huge protection of workplaces program, large-scale programs. Employers will help to keep the employees throughout the closures of the services sector. It was a big issue in tourism, was completely gone, restaurants, hotels, whatever. And then we had an automatic prolongation of all family benefits. Of course, from maternity leave, there were no employee to return to. So actually, it was the best to automatically prolong the benefit that would have run out throughout the state of emergency. And then we still have a moratoria on credit installments. It had been phased out now, but whomever has a salary which was decreased because of the pandemic last year, or whoever raises children, they can still make use of the moratoria. For everyone else, this had been phased out. We had a quite
what means for you moratoria on credit installments?
That you do not have to pay the monthly repayment of mortgages, for example. So if you have a house and you pay €200 every month, and you have lost your job, you could not pay back the €200, and they would have taken your house. But because of the moratoria, you do not have to pay throughout the state of emergency, and after that, this will be add up to the in the time of your repayment. So if you would have finished paying back your house in 2030, and now you are in the moratoria for 1 year, then you will pay later. You will pay until 2031. But now, when you do not have employment, you do not have income, you do not have to pay.
Because the emergency status has been expired, so is still valid, this moratoria now?
As I said, it is not valid only for those who lost, who has decreased income, and those who raised children. So this had been phased out in the summer. because the economy is now back to sort of normal.
Okay, thank you.
But if you have children, you still can say that I cannot pay back my credit, and I will then pay later. But it does not mean that you will not have to pay back. It certainly means that you will pay back longer. But now in this different situation, the state did help in that. And then, and then we had a quite fast vaccination regime in Hungary. We reached 50% of vaccinated second in the European Union. We also have to be honest that unfortunately now we are lagging behind, because we cannot pass 60% vaccination mark, because we still have quite some population in Hungary who does not want to get vaccinated. But it's not because we would not have the jabs or would not have the vaccines. It's just because I rather not say what I think of that. But it meant that we had an early restart of the economy. And in 2021, we started a new measure on helping to restart the economy, and also to help Hungarians with the new housing program. And it did introduce some measures on reduced VAT and a cut off levy on building new houses. But the more important one is the newest measure, which will be in case in 2022. But the decision had been already made, and this is a conditional measure. And the condition is that the growth of the Hungarian economy has to reach 5.5%. It looks like that we will reach even 7% in 2021. And the Prime Minister and the government said that we have a favorable financial situation here, because the budget was not calculated with such a fast recovery. And what shall we do with that extra money which will flow into the fiscus? And he said that we all know that families did fare good throughout the homeschooling and throughout all the problems of the economy and of course the coronavirus. But it was very hard on families. So let's give back to families from that extra money which comes in. So let's use that financial and economic possibility for further strengthening families. And he said it in a way that now it's time to build back the reserves a bit for Hungarian families, because many were losing their jobs for a couple of months. Many had lower income throughout the economic crisis and the pandemic. So this new measure will mean that in February, those who raise children under 18 will receive their actually paid personal income tax back. This measure is kept at 2,200 euro, but this does not concern just one of the parents, but it concerns two of the parents. So actually, if you have 3 children, and I listed to you that you can have 300 euro cut off your taxes monthly, that means that if it is taken up by the father, then this measure will not help the father much unless he makes a lot of money. But it concerns the mother as well. So actually, in that sense, you can make full use of the family taxation, or the parent, or the one parent, so let's say the father can make full use of the family taxation throughout the year. And next February, the mother will receive back 2,200 euro maximum of their taxes. This is something which costs a lot of money to the economy or to the government, but on the other hand, it is something very, very easily justifiable, and it is something which is very much the Hungarians are very much aware of that and very much welcome this possibility. I believe I will stop here, but maybe just stating one quote from the Prime Minister, because I believe it explains to you why so many measures are actually in place in Hungary. In 2019, in the Budapest Demographic Summit, he said that we will managed to build a family support system that ensures that those who decide to have children are guaranteed a better living standards than if they decided not to have children. And the quote goes on that this should happen while they raise those children, and not just because they will have someone to take care of them when they are old. So all these measures which I listed aim at putting Hungarian families raising children in a more favorable situation than those who do not raise children, because we all know that at the end, even if we look at it economically, it is economically sound to have children. It is economically very much important because of the sustainability of our public finances, because the sustainability of our nations, to speak about bigger issues. But of course, even if you want to just put it down to the dollar, it is the sustainability of the pension schemes, it is the sustainability of the health insurance. This all will not be sustainable if we do not have more children in Europe, for sure. And that's exactly why we are trying to address the family economics as we do. Or actually, that's why we believe that trying to help Hungarians to have as many children as they wish is also economically perfectly sound. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you
very much,
Bala, for this great, I can say, presentation and efforts, isn't it?
Thank you also, Mr. Molnar. I'm sure that these policy measures are inspiring for us too. I want to ask you many things, but the time is limited. So I will ask just 3 questions. Please tell me if I understand correctly. Maria Kopp Institute for Demography and Families is the state institution that manages family policies. Is this correct?
Well, it is. We are not managing family policies. We are a research institute, so we are rather analyzing and studying the effects.
Okay, perfect. I was curious about the institutional structure that allows so good results. So my question.
Well, the infrastructure is easy. If I may respond directly, we have a minister responsible for families. She is a minister for, so to say, without portfolio, but she is a fully fledged minister responsible solely for family-related issues.
Okay, I understand. And another question was if you have a computation of how much of the GDP you spend for family policy.
It's roughly 5% now. And we started in 2010, we spent 3.5%. And 5% is roughly twice the OECD average.
Yeah, okay, I understand. It's a good figure. Well, thank you very much for the information shared. If there are any other questions?
For me, I have more, but I prefer to put it at the end after the other presentation. Okay. If you give me this permission, please.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. So I have congratulations. I really hungry for having such comprehensive policy, because what is important, what you show, and what is actually, I don't think many prime ministers around Europe would have the courage to say that clearly, because I don't think it would be that much welcome in other countries, because a lot of people consider family policies as compensation or poverty measures and so on and so forth, but so they would not probably have the courage, but that courage is reflected in how comprehensive the policies are and how well thought of. So it was really inspiring. Thank you.
The issue there, Matteo, is that if we put it to the family to the poverty reduction line, then we put it into the problem square, and we do not believe that families are the problem. We rather believe that they are the solution and the investment. So that's exactly why we broke from social policies. It's not that we would not have families from coming from disadvantaged circumstances and poor families. Of course, we do have. We are trying to aid them as much as we only can. But the primary aim is not poverty reduction, but rather to enable them to have everyone to have as many children as they would like to have.
Okay, I think it's time to move to the next presentation, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Christoph HUMERL, tax expert in Austria.
I'm curious to see, Christoph, what you say about comparison with Hungary about the taxes, what you can say in Austria. But I can notice that in the last years, Austria make good steps forward for helping the family. No, what you can tell us about this 1,500 euro per family with the children, and now is increasing, I heard, isn't it?
Yes, of course. Yeah, this is I think also a good point, which started in Austria with 2019. Yeah, this process, and this is closed. The reason for this point, I will mention it later on, is that we saw that a lot of people with starting with some income stopped to make a family. They have a problem and say, what will the future bring us? And a lot of people say, if I earn too less money, I cannot afford a family. And this was also here a point where it shifted. I think it started in 2018, but then later on we will have this with this tax relief, this family bonus, which is now in all our system in. Yeah, but I want to start it more, I think, on the first way that you get a feeling about Austria and how are the facts and figures here in Austria. We have there a population. I think you can go to the next slide. I think it's easier. That we have about 9.90 million inhabitants. We have here in Austria 1.57 million pupils and students. We have about 4.5 million. I think I'm already on the next slide. If you can move, please.
Mrs. Irina, if you can move just to the next slide, please.
Sorry, I was checking with Roxana whether we can prolong the discussion. So if you can repeat, what
just
should I do?
The next slide.
The next slide.
Yes, I'll try to do this. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
I pay attention and you tell me when to, and I will do it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yes, we have in Austria 4.5 million employees, 2.3 million men and 2 million women. At the moment, we have unemployed people about 500,000, and people who are in the minimum benefit system, we have about 300,000 people. And we have rented is about 1.72 million, and they are rising each year very rapidly. What we have, next slide, please.
Yes.
We have a medium income. I think this is very to understand our policy here in Austria, that a man have 1,106 euros per month net, the minimum, the women 1.520 euros per month net. This difference is the reason that a lot of women work less in time due to the family working, and that's why they get less income there. Employment rate in Austria 72%, unemployment rate at the moment 7%, and the fertility rate 1.55 per children and women. The age is rising. It's about at the moment first child for the woman with 27 and 28 years. The main impact on this is, I think, that we all, the young people, are instructed and said, please, first education and then family. Please finish the school, please finish the study, and. And this, I think, is of course is important for our life. Especially, we know in Austria we have to work at minimum at 65 years. The next generation we know will have to work up to 70 years. And that's why the education and the time we have there will be more and more become important. Which instruments do we have in Austria? We have here this family allowance. The family allowance is the most important instrument for supporting families in Austria. The parents receive a compensation for costs creating by the maintenance obligation towards the children. Who can get this? All parents who are legally resident in Austria or have valid residence permitted here. The claim of family allowance lasts normally until the age of 25, so the beginning of the first day of living until the ending year of 24. At the age of 18, they ask, of course, the government or the tax authority, what about the situation? Is attend the children a school or not, or they go to the university? If they go after the school 1 year to the army, of course, then they will get 1 year later on, then here up to 25. Of course, there are different rules for children with special needs. We have in Austria about 1.1 million people who claim family allowance for about 1.8 million children. The main question, of course, is how much you will get. It will depend on how many children you have and also of the age. But on average, when you calculate this from the first year to the 18th year, you can say that you get per year, per child, 2,500 euros up to 2,607 or 700 euros. Each year will get this. This would mean if you have 2 children, of course, you'll get money over 5,000 euro from the government. This is transferred to the bank account of the mother or of the father. You can decide how you can handle this. If the children are then 18 years old, of course, they can also ask that they get the money personally from the government, not via their parents. Yeah. This, of course, for the students is this interesting point, and that's here the rule. In a year, we spent over 3.4 billion euros for this instrument. Yeah, it is independent for how much you earn. It is independent what you have done before. You will get the money when you have the children. The second most important instrument we have in Austria is a child care allowance. You have this on the next page.
Next slide. But before this, Christoph, we just want to make a short clarification. So you call it family allowance, but that is like between 18 also years up to 25 years. So this is very interesting concept to see. Yeah. While the usual allowance for the children is only up to 18 years, correct?
The basic, yes. But if you study, if the children then study, they will get it further up to the 24th age. Yeah. But of course, they have to show that they are successfully in this education process. They have to fulfill at the minimum. We have these Bologna points, and that students know this lesson have 3 points, 10 points, and they have to document that they have within the 1 year, last year or something like that, here a minimum of I think 15 points. And then when they can show that they have the exams and have a positive result from that, this family allowance is paid further on. If you don't go to the university and stay at home and do nothing, then within 1 year, this is the ending to get money. So you have to be successful, yeah, to be on your education process.
Yeah, that's strange. I don't know any other country which can pay allowance after 18 years.
Yeah, yeah. But this, of course, this is one instrument that everybody in Austria can make also a study, and perhaps not. You have to go to the town and yeah. They are not in this case in Norway, because I'm married with a Norwegian lady. They get a credit. They get a credit and can go abroad. They get like about 700 euros a month transferred to a bank account, and they can study in the whole world. And then later on, when they finish the study, it's a very good loan with a very good interest rate. They pay this back. Yeah, and of course, if you get then children, or you get then, in this case, you're unemployed, then you have to pay no interest rate. Yeah, and they make it in that way, this policy in Norway. Yeah. Of course, your marriage alone. Yeah, that must be always from the thinking about, but it's no problem to handle this. Yeah. The second point we have is this childcare allowance. And this childcare allowance, there are two main requirements to get this childcare allowance. And this is to get a family allowance. This is necessary. And you live legally here in Austria, in one household with your child. This is also a condition. We have here two cases, how much you get and how long you get this childcare allowance. The one is intended to be a substitute of one salary. You can choose this if you are in the job, you have been employed before the birth of the child, and then you get of a period of 12 months, depending on your income before, up to 2,000 euros per month. Yeah, it's like an unemployment salary, but it's independent. It depends on what you earned before, and of course this can be additional 2 months more. You can get this if your partner will also stay at home. If only one person will do this, you get it 12 months, and with two persons you get it 15 months. And of course, it is also possible that you earn you have an additional income. That's up to 7,300 euros. Then you can say, I stay at home, I get this childcare allowance, about 2,000 euros, and I can do also additional job if I want to support this. The second system, the generalized system, is it's intended to reward the care service of the parents and to grant it independently of previous jobs. There you can stay at home over between 15 and 35 months, and you will get in this 3 years about 14,400 euros. These are approximately 380 euros per month. And of course, if you are like a student, and you get a child, then you can have no income before, then you can choose this version and can say, okay, I can stay at home, or you get money for this 35 months at the minimum. You get this additional to the family allowance, this money. Yeah, this is the case. Yeah, these are the main points here in Austria. What have been changed in this COVID crisis? Here we had also an Corona hardship funds for families. This is for parents who were employed at the end of February 2020 and who were sent to the work short time or lost their job. And here they get additional to the unemployment salary. They get about 1,300 euros on average. Over 100,000 parents were here supported. The government spent here over 131 million euros to this fund, hardship fund for families. It was also granted a special bonus additional to the family allowance per child. Every family every family got 360 euros. So if you have 2 kids, then you get 720 euros in September of the last year for the COVID crisis. This was a little surprising for us. Our organization, the Katholischen Familienfund, asked for this, to do this, but we have also to consider that we also say, is this really the right way that we get this because, or that we get paid for to be parents? Yeah, and this was also a great discussion in some groups in our organization, because we don't want to be paid to be parents. It is much more, we would much more appreciate when we go on the street and the people say, oh, you have respect, you have 2 kids, you have 3 kids, or something like that. It would be much more raising our self-fulfilling than to get money for that. And the third, what happened is for unemployed people, that they get additional 100 euro a children grant here as an unemployment benefit in their situation. Of course, the question is, how can be this financed, this expenses? This childcare allowance, we spent about 1.2 billion euros in the last year to the families. We have here in Austria the Family Equalization Fund, FLAF called. This is in Austria a special feature, and it was created in 1955 as main financing instrument for family benefits. This fund consists of employer contribution based on the gross payment here in Austria, and all this employer have to pay in this fund, and this money will only spend to the families. The earnings of this fund in a year is about 7 billion a year. Yes, and this fund will also pay, for instance, that we have all free books in the schools, or all the kids can go with no paying anything from home to school by public transfer and something like that in this way. In 2019, there we have a change. There we start up with the family bonus. This was the first tax reduction in our history we have for family purposes, and it was quasi reduced here the tax payment for a kid about for 1,500 euros up to the 18th birthday a year. Of course, if you have older children than 18, then you get only 500 euros for that. What should be necessary is, of course, that you get the family allowance. This is, of course, necessary in this case. And people who have no income or not taxable income, they will only get 250 euros per child and per year. Of course, now when we take a look at this, all the figures, we have to consider and say, okay, you must know that we have in Austria, you pay not taxes up to an income about 11,000 euros. There is tax-free income. What you do, you can get the income from employment, unemployment, you can get the income from shares, from flats, from rental income or something like that. And you have to consider that when you earn in Austria 100, 900 euro gross a month, then you pay no taxes with this bonus for one child for this 1,500 euros. We are here at the moment in a situation to say, yes, we get, it is more important that the people pay social security, yeah, than to pay taxes. And in this situation, we have a little consider about this, that you can say when you earn in Austria gross 1,900 euros per month, this will cost the employer about 35,000 euros. It's a lot of money. And the employee pay no taxes when they have one child by this family bonus. But you have to consider from this total cost, 29% is paid to the Social Security for healthcare and pension fund. These are over 9,900 euros. And this is the major point, that we have at the moment a shifting from tax income for the government to Social Security income. And we pay at the moment nearly more Social Security than taxes here in this situation for a very wide range of people. This is, and now to discuss that the tax bonus will increase, I think, next year up to 2,000 euros per child per year in this case.
So, okay, Christoph, thank you very much. I need to say that we are short in time, so I would like to ask you to go to conclusion, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, of course. We have some other. You can see this on the slides. Of course, some mother and child pass instruments, benefits in kind. There we have in Austria. Also here, the child raising period count for pension entitlement and size, that if you are at home with the children, that you will get also a pension month, and here an amount. Of course, we have a kindergarten free of charge, and also the school free of charge. And the other stream we have here on the next slide, you can see the sixth point is the workplace protection. In this workplace protection for family policy, this is when you pregnancy, you are is not allowed to resign, pregnant women, and also are 8 weeks before the birth and 8 weeks after the birth, you get here nearly a full payment by the health insurance, but you are not allowed to work. Yeah, I think these are the main instruments here in this case. What we have here, these are sozusagen in this case workplace protection and additional supporting during the COVID crisis. This is that pregnant woman is the one where not is not necessary that they work, and also this bonus care time This is if you are the kids at home, that you get 3 weeks that you can be at home, fully paid, and that's for the parents if the school was closed due to COVID and the COVID crisis. Yeah. Then thank you for attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I can see that we only have now less than 25 minutes for the discussion. So if you agree, let's go to the next and the last presentation that we have on our list, and after perhaps have time to discuss more and ask more questions. Yes?
Okay.
Okay, so please, Mrs. BOBARNAT and Mrs. Matei's presentation.
Can you see my screen? Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Our presentation is about factors determining migration for work abroad and implication for family solidarity. It is part of a larger project financed by Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization. And I will go directly to the main idea of this research. The theoretical context that we used was regarding dimensions of 3 dimensions of family solidarity: material support, contact and advice support that we renamed as emotional support, and norms of family obligation. When we also looked at the direct and objective evaluation of family solidarity, the feeling of unity with the family as defined by Strong, DeVolt and Cohen. So in fact, what we wanted to do is to look at families, Romanian families with 1 or 2 parents migrating abroad and with children left in the country. It is a qualitative research with 22 in-depth interviews with parents and grandparents that take care of children with migrating parents. The interviews were implemented in 2 regions of Romania, Northeast and Southeast region, the regions with the highest number of children left behind. And we have some theoretical sampling criteria that I will not talk about now because lack of time. So we wanted to discover the effects of migration experience on family, children, and communities left behind. And our results of this qualitative research are the following. We identified as factors of migration one of the dimensions of family solidarity, meaning material support. So the parents, even sometimes being held by the extended family members, were in the impossibility of materially supporting their children. The unfulfilled material needs are providing food for children, clothing and footwear, supplies, ensuring decent living conditions and utilities, procuring housing, and in general covering monthly expenses. We also identified the dissolution of solidarity inside the conjugal couple, in the case that the impossibility of material supporting the family is being doubled by the perspective of the dissolution of the conjugal couple with the departure abroad. We saw that migration was a moment of crisis for family solidarity, and some of the interviewed persons said, when he first left, I felt that the family was no longer united, because that was what we asked. When was the first time that you felt that the family was no longer united? So the answer was when he first left, when the children began to cry because they missed their father. Others said, the first time he left, it was hard for me alone. I thought that if he left, the relationship between us would break down, but it didn't happen. So all of them passed through this crisis moment for family solidarity, but we saw that some of the families in time improved the family solidarity, subjective and direct measure of family solidarity. Others experienced a deterioration of this family solidarity. So some said, we felt more united. He decided to make a sacrifice for us. We decided to make a sacrifice for him. We stayed at home and we didn't make any problems. We felt more united. The material part was what we won after migration. And I think the closeness between me and my husband as family, between us. Others said, those who experienced deterioration of family solidarity. When the first Christmas passed and we didn't see each other. When the first birthday of C passed and we didn't see each other. I thought things would repeat endlessly and that I have to find the strength to see this child manage on her own, not only by my own strength. So we already can see what determined the family deterioration, family solidarity deterioration. And we look at the three dimensions of family solidarity that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. We look at the material support. Some were able to achieve the material aims that they have prior migration. We improved financially, we won more money, we were happy that we have accomplished everything we had to do financially. Others did not fully accomplish their material aims, but they still stayed together because all family members knew that the migrating parents did his best to accomplish the material support. He sends home all the money he wins. What he wins, he sends home to buy food. Firewood food is what we need. This week, we ate only potatoes from the garden, boiled. If he doesn't win more money, how can we ask him to send us more money? The others did not accomplish their material support and experienced family solidarity deterioration. He left the country 5 years ago, during which time he never returned to the country. He was accompanied by his wife, with whom they were not in a close relationship, and the story goes on until the end. The grandma says, it is more and more difficult because they don't send any more money for the children, for the child. In fact, it was one child. We then look at the emotional support. The families that stayed together said, but mom is mom and dad is dad. She shares all secrets with dad and only with dad. Others said, this year the boy stayed at home from October to February. The father took him to Satu Mare, Săpânța, to skiing. He takes him to travel every year. And I think this year they will spend the holidays in France, and so far so on. Others that experienced solidarity deterioration said, I think that's his birthday, when she hopes that her parents will come home, and until the last moment, until midnight, she waits anxiously, and I don't know how else to tell her to make her feel better. And she realized that this time, too, she will not be hugged in her parents' arm, and no matter how hard I try to brighten her day, the results are. We then look at norms of family obligation. The family that maintained their solidarity said, I think that the problems we encountered are regarding the children's behavior and make me feel that the family is no longer united. And we were trying to face them. I was saying one thing, he was saying something else, having a different opinion about children education. But communicating, we managed to stay together. So these family members continued to negotiate the norms of family until reaching common norms. So we identified some strategies for family solidarity in which parent migrates and children stay at home. Regarding the material support, parents provided the material support that was the reason of the migration, or did their best to provide the material support, even if sometimes they were unable to fulfill this obligation. Regarding the emotional support, the parents had frequent discussions with the child and the guardian through internet and communication technologies. The parents' emotional closeness to the child, frequent visit to the country, especially in significant moments, holiday, birthday. The children were visiting the parents abroad. The parents were providing homework help through ICT and indirect supervision of the child through discussions with teachers, also through ICT. The members of the family have similar norms of family obligation, or when there are differences in these norms, family members commit in their negotiation until harmonizing them. The members of the family do their best to follow the norms of family obligation after the migration abroad, even if they are unable sometimes to fulfill them. So we saw a relation, it is a qualitative research, so we cannot talk about statistically significant, but we saw relation between the dimensions of family solidarity, family support, material support, emotional support, and norms of family obligation, and direct and subjective evaluation of the family solidarity. Also, we find relation between the two dimensions of family solidarity, material support and emotional support, and effects on child. Children who lack material and emotional support experience the following effects. First of all, material deprivation, school absenteeism, long-term extreme emotional feelings, deviance, and even self-destructive behaviors when the parents disengage on both of these dimensions of family solidarity. So this is our presentation, and thank you for your attention. I tried to make this presentation as short as possible.
Mrs. BÖRBUș, thank you very much. I find the topic very interesting and, as we all know, very relevant for the situation of Romania, which has a problem from this point of view. There are many children left alone, and they experience all type of negative effects. I'm sure that this session will motivate us to meet again and to keep in contact, because many questions, we will still have many questions and answers to be communicated. I would like to ask you if you have questions for this presentation and for the previous one of Mr. HUMERL, because at 5 minutes we have to end.
So I have a question for Mrs. BÖRBUș. That's an interesting study about this, let's say, family solidarity, which I can say that it's interesting. So I would like to ask you, for example, that within these results, so there are some plans for measures, or how do you see the future after this study? So do you make some recommendation for the state in these cases, or what do you recommend?
So based on the results of our qualitative research, we will have some quantitative research, that will try to find the significant factors for family solidarity dissolution, and also for the effects on negative effects on children. And after this, we can make some recommendations for policy, because it's premature now based on qualitative research results.
Because, for example, here I'm coming with a question from for Mr. Balázs from Hungary. I know that Hungary has a lot of people going abroad also. I know a lot of Hungarians working in Germany, for example, and I'm sure that they have some children at home. Do you have such measures for helping, supporting the families with the children at home, Balázs, in Hungary?
Yes, well, thank you very much. I will answer your question, Cornel, first, and I have two very short, well, rather comments than questions to the last two speakers. Excellent ones, by the way. We have a big community in the European Union, but we are happy to report that we have much more those who return for the last 3 years now than who leave Hungary. We have a big and large group of frontier workers, mostly in Austria and in southern Germany. These are the ones who only return home for the weekend. So they have a lot of family members left home, whereby those who live further away in Germany, in the Netherlands, in the UK, they move with their family members. But what can family policy do for them? What we did is that, for example, we acknowledge European Union social security contribution from any other country. So when you want to move home, and for example, you want to buy a house with the subsidy you can also get that if you worked in Austria and Germany, in the UK, and you don't have to wait 1 year, so that you have your social security payment going into the Hungarian economy. If I may reflect to 2 points what I've heard from the excellent colleagues, I believe that Christoph, you had a very important sentence, that you want big families, large families, and families to be proud of having children and to walk around in the city and in the town, and then you want others to see that you are happy and fulfilled with having family. I believe that this is the key, because if others who do not yet have children but they want to have children, they see you as a happy family, as someone who has self-esteem, who is happy with the situation, and actually also fares okay or good. That is exactly the kick, the push for them to also go and have those children they desire. That's exactly why we also did the separation from anti-poverty, because we don't want to state. I've said that we don't have time, so you remember. On the other hand, on the Romanian situation, we have that maybe not as a big scale as you, but this is something what we should talk more about in the Future of Europe conferences, because this is an issue that the economic situation of the continent divides families, and we have who knows many children who don't see their parents. I believe this is not very common that both the parents are moving away, but I've heard of that as well, that we also have families where both working parents are off to who knows where, and they do not return or rarely return, and then of course you can maintain a development or you can maintain a relation in Skype and Viber and whatever, but that's anything but the same. So we do have to address this situation as well. And of course, there are many others. We could talk about that for ages. But I believe that this is fantastic that you keep on looking into this question. I remember I was in Bucharest in 2018, and you already had a study very similar, or probably it was this one, but an earlier version. And I'm quite confident that this is something we also need to address. That this will have long-term effects on these children, on these families, and it's good that there is intergenerational solidarity, that at least they are in the safe hands of their grandparents, if it is the situation. But I can imagine that there are many families where the grandparents are still working, the grandparents are already too old, sick, that they cannot, and then who will take care of these children? So that's exactly why it would be great if there is mobility, which I believe is something positive in the European Union. Then the financial situation and the decency of work relations should be on a way that actually the entire family can go to UK, to Germany, wherever, and then when they want, they can return back to our region. I believe that would certainly be something of a much more sustainable nature, and maybe causing less harm on the long run. So thank you very much. I believe this was excellent, and it was as always a pleasure to discuss with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Balázs. We will take this proposal for our next conference also, because this could be an interesting topic. So I would like to ask Mrs. BÖNRBUș to go ahead and to keep staying with us for the next year. So I would like to ask Matteo. He has said that he had some more questions. So Matteo, I know that we are a little bit short in time, but please feel free to put your questions.
No, maybe. Sorry, I hope there's some noise here.
It's okay.
No, maybe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just it's the very last minute, so let me also comment on the. Yes, I think the migration is something that needs to be studied further. There's one of the. I mean, it has a huge impact, and not always in the expected direction. Also on the well-being and happiness of people. And actually, the World Happiness Report of 2 or 3 years ago had a specific focus on migration. We all know that people move for economic reasons, but at least in the first years, this decreases both the situation of those who leave and of those who stay at home. So again, we find that economic well-being is fairly detached from subjective well-being, or at least it's not just that. And anyway, so very, very interesting, very complementary, but very relevant for what you're doing. And so concerning the policies, the family policies of both Hungary and Austria, let me also comment that I feel embarrassed that the level of debate in my country is very lagging behind in this. I mean, I see what these countries. Not that I see them for the first time, but I read several reports on, and we look at what other countries are doing, and we look at them with envy, because it's really. I mean, one issue. I just give you one issue on which we are debating. So, because in Italy we are just now finally getting one single measure. Collecting all benefits for children, a measure that I saw on the slides by Christoph that was done in Austria in 1955. Well, in 2021.
1955, so now it's coming to Italy.
Exactly. After a few years, it's coming to Italy finally. But we are doing it not as a universal allowance, flat and equal for every child, but it is linked to the income, income of the parents, and in a very steep way. So, for instance, I will not get, with 6 children, I will get a very, very small amount of money. I'm considered actually a rich person in Italy just because I'm a university professor and my wife too, and so we are rich for this kind. So even with 6 children,
Matteo, you are the richest guy here at the speaker. So with 6 children, so okay, it's good to say.
And this is going to be our new family tax policy, which is prided and prized by politicians as like a revolutionary. So we are really lagging behind, and our fertility rate betrays exactly that, because we are stuck to one of the lowest level, and we are not as opposed to Hungary and as opposed to Romania, because Romania has climbed so much in the last few years. It's really a story that needs to be told, because Romania has I think by now 1.7, even a little bit higher than 1.7. From a very low level, which was at a certain point, I believe 1.2. We are at 1.25, and we are just there and not able to move on. So that were final comments. But anyway, thank you for everybody for this talk, and let's keep in touch and let's do further work together.
If you agree, you can send to me or to Mr. BŇRBUș the presentations, and we can do a list of contacts and send the presentations to everyone if you agree. And we can also obviously keep in touch for more discussions.
That'll be fine.
Yes?
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you very much to all of you. The panel was very interesting. And again, thank you for your participation. And I hope to see you next year. And who knows, perhaps physically.
It would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
To grow up more and to go to this migration team and the other teams, so to go together and you can feel to distribute these records with this discussion of today.
Okay,
Sure.
thank
you.
Have
for
a
the
nice
opportunity. It was a pleasure.
afternoon, and let's go back to our families now.
It's a good idea.
Enjoy.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.